let's see. First of all, this is the first lighthouse of the new season. So, rah, raise the roof. That's very exciting. The lighthouse tonight is being sponsored by, dedicated for the shalom of Bracha Chana Bat Miriam, and in honor of a shidduch for Aaron ben Gideon and Leah bat Friedel, and success for Gedaliah's website, and for the Refuah Shlema of Menachem Mendel ben Sarah Batya and Devorah Fega bat Rezel. Okay. All right, so we're back in the saddle. As always, I will endeavor mightily. I have my computer open here in front of me, and I will try to respond to whatever people are writing at the time. I will try. Don't hold it against me if I don't, because sometimes I tend to space out a little bit and I get involved, but I will try. Tonight's topic is making sense of the Adam and Eve story. And to begin with, before we actually get into the story itself, which obviously I will speak out outside to give you a broad, like the 30,000 foot view of what goes on in the Torah in Genesis all the way in the beginning, and then we'll get deeper into it. But before that, the question is, why is the Adam and Eve story even there? It's a very... The Adam and Eve story. Adam v'Chava. The question is why it's even there. And I say that it doesn't belong there intuitively, because if you think about different cultures, they all have an origin story, right? The fact that you have a creation story, that's not mind-boggling, that's intuitive. So, the Babylonians have an origin story, and the Egyptians have an origin story, and the Khans had an origin story. Everyone has an origin story, because you need to make sense of things. So if you're a primitive human living 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 900 years ago, you need to explain to yourself and your own mind and your children how all this happened. So I get why you would have a story how the world came into creation. It's okay for the Jews, it's God the creator, and if you're a fan of Enuma Elish, then it's a bunch of different gods that are fighting in between themselves, and then like Marduk wins. And if you're a fan of like Pangu, then it's the great huge giant who slices yin and yang in half, and then he dies, and out of like the fleas on his coat you get the animals, etc., etc. So I get why you would have these stories. People in the olden days would make up gods to explain phenomena. They had to understand where fire comes from and where clouds come from, etc., etc. Fine, I get it. But that's not what the Adam and Eve story is about at all. Why are you telling me this strange story about the original man, which I don't know of any other story when it comes to this? Why are you telling me to eat from a magic tree, and there's a talking snake, and then they get kicked out of paradise? And why are you telling me this? Why would you have the necessity to concoct such a strange tale? So there are different ways that you can deal with it, right? If you're a Christian, then you'll say that this is original sin. It's very important to understand the concept of original sin. The reason that we're all cursed as a race together, the reason that we are cursed as a race, the human race, is because the first human messed up. Boom, original sin, and now we're all in trouble. Okay, great. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, again, from a very religious standpoint, is to say, well, God put it in the book. Who are you to question why? What do you mean? You don't have to understand the motives. It's God. You couldn't possibly understand God's motives. Okay, I'm all right with that. I don't think that God puts things in a book for us to read, for us not to understand. I think He puts things in a book for us to read so that we do and will and can understand. But fine. And then there's but from the atheist perspective. Like if this book was just written by strange human beings who are trying to get their story out, it's a very, very strange story. It's a very strange story. Because it doesn't seem to come to answer anything other than maybe like why do humans die? Why is there death in the world? But why is there death in the world is a weird question, because why shouldn't there be? Everything else has a beginning, middle, and end, so why wouldn't humans have a beginning, middle, and end? So whatever we're going to talk about the inside of the story, which we're going to get to right now, I want you to keep in the back of your mind that we're going to have to understand why it's in the Torah to begin with. Why is this there? It doesn't need to be there. Okay, so now let's talk for a few moments about what the story is from a bird's eye view, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into it. So you have, again, you're in Eden, you got man, you got woman, everything is cool, everyone's grooving, nobody's wearing any clothes, it's lots of fun, beautiful place, delicious fruits, and talking snakes. Hey, what's a good movie without a talking snake? And and God says to people, right, to man, you can eat from whatever you want, but just not that tree. Like, this magic tree is bad, and if you eat it, you're going to die, and don't do it. Okay, fine, you get 99% of trees, not one tree. Okay, it's not so fine. And of course, they're going to mess up and eat from the tree, and sure enough, that's what happens. And the snake, the talking snake, goes over to Eve and says, right, you're not allowed to eat from any of the trees? And Eve is like, we're allowed to eat from the trees, we're just not allowed to eat from that tree in the middle of the garden. That's the only tree we're not allowed to eat from. Because if we eat from that, God says we're going to die. And the snake says, no, you won't die. See, God knows that on the day that you eat from that tree, you're going to become like him. And he's jealous of you. And Eve is like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. So she eats from the tree and then gives to her husband. He eats from the tree. And then all of a sudden, they realize that they're naked and they're in big trouble. And God comes to them. And God says to Adam, why'd you eat from the tree? And Adam's like, well, the woman that you gave me, she gave me from the tree and I ate. And then he turns to Eve and says, why'd you do this? And she says, well, the snake tricked me and I ate. And Hashem gets very upset and he curses the snake and he curses Eve and he curses Adam. And then he kicks them out of Eden. Wonderful. That is, in a very small and truncated nutshell, the story of Adam and Chava, the story of Adam and Eve. Now let's zoom in for a few moments. I hope that we'll have time to answer all these questions. If we don't, good. Then you'll have some questions to discuss among your family and friends, and that's fine too. Let's just ask some pretty simple, basic questions. God says to Adam, why did you eat? And what is Adam's response?
No one gave it to me.
Exactly. The woman that you gave me gave it to me and I ate. And God's like, that's a really good point. I'm going to go talk to her now. Now, actually, that's a terrible point. Right? Because we all know, we were all in kindergarten, and in kindergarten, when you did something bad, and then you were called into the principal's office or your parents, and they say, why'd you do that? You say, oh, because Chaim told me to do it. And what does mommy and daddy say? If Chaim told you to jump off the Empire State Building, would you do it? Well, we've all been there. We've all been there. So basically, Adam is a moron. He's a moron. And God asks him, why did you eat from the tree? And he's like, well, she gave it to me. And God's like, oh, that's a really good point. How is that a good point? That's a horrible point. Before God moves on to talk to Eve, he should smack Adam in the face and be like, you're an idiot. How dare you give me that kind of a horrible answer? That's what he should have done. But instead, he takes it. God's like, oh, well, that's reasonable. And he moves on. And then God says to Eve, why'd you do it? And she says, well, the snake tricked me.
Well, she didn't.
The snake? Oh, the snake tricked her, right? He tricked her. Well, let's think for a moment what it means that the snake tricked her. If you look in the Bible, if you look in the Torah, it says that she says to the snake, if we eat or touch that tree, we'll die. And the snake said, no, you won't. God will be jealous of you. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like it's true. Chances are God lied to me and you, the talking snake, are telling the truth. He tricked her? That doesn't sound like a trick. Right? It doesn't seem like the snake tricked Eve into eating. It seems like the snake out and lied to her and was like, yeah, God's a liar, and she trusted the snake over God, which is a very strange and counterintuitive thing for her to do, considering that in the story it seems like she knows God. It's not like God is this strange guy that they've never heard of before. Adam and Eve talk to him, right? Like they converse. So it's weird that you would take the word of the snake over the word of God. It's very strange. And then for her to say, well, he tricked me. He didn't trick you. That's the wrong word. It's not that he tricked you. He lied to you. A trick usually means he did something that made it seem that he was telling the truth, but really he wasn't. There was no indication whatsoever on the face of it that he was telling the truth. So the verbiage is very, very strange also. This may sound nitpicky to some of you, but I'm assuming for a moment that every single word in the Torah needs to be exactly that way. And it matters. And if it matters, then we're going to get nitpicky. We're going to pick the nits. Okay. So those are some...
On that nitpicky?
Please, nitpick away.
God said don't eat.
Right.
When she talked to the snake, she said God said don't eat or touch.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I love that point.
And I thought about this.
Love that point. Yeah, I love that point.
So why did she say or touch?
That's a great point. That's gonna come up again.
Okay.
Right, that's what the snake,
Yeah, it's a great point.
says,
Well, you touched it and you die, so you can eat it.
Boom. So that's where we're going. That's exactly where we're going, and that's great. That's why you need to pick the nits. Every time something sounds out of place, it's because that's your red flag. So those are issues with the flow of the story. In that if you were telling this story to your kid, like your kid would ask you those questions. Those are questions, those are plot questions. But the truth is, the story makes no sense for a far deeper reason. The story itself on the surface, the message of the story, the lesson of the story, seems to be horribly backwards. Let's talk about this magic tree for a moment, shall we? What is this the tree of? Tree of knowledge, right? It's the tree of knowledge. That's what everybody says, yes? Tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge of baseball scores, tree of knowledge of political acumen, tree of knowledge of encyclopedic, tree of knowledge of what? It's not the... Tovara, exactly. It is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's not the tree of knowledge of fashion. It's not the tree of knowledge of meteors. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which means, at least it would seem to mean, that if you eat from this tree, if you partake of this tree, you will know good and evil. The difference between them, good and evil. Wonderful. Okay. Now, when you encounter this story, when God is talking to the people, there are two possibilities. Either God says what he means to say, and he's serious about it, or he's kind of a jerk and a big joker, and he likes to manipulate people and get them to mess up so he can smack them. It's the other possibility. Well, let's take God at his word, shall we? Because I think that that's just the more logical place to start, right? Unless you have very, very compelling evidence to the contrary, I think we should give God the benefit of the doubt and assume that if he tells Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree, it means he doesn't want them to eat from the tree. Because that's what he said. Don't eat. Okay. So that means God does not want Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And what happens when you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? You know good and evil. So does God want Adam and Eve to know the difference between good and evil? Seems not. It seems that he does not. So you're telling me that God thinks that it is better for humans to not know the difference between Tov and Ra, between good and evil. Really?
Or did he?
Well, I mean, on the surface, again, what he's saying, we can say that no, he was manipulating them, he didn't want them to eat, but he did want them to eat, but he was doing reverse psychology. Forget all of those, you know, like they say, cheshbainis, like in Yiddish. Right? Forget that. Let's assume that he means exactly what he says. Let's take it on the surface level, because that's how it's written. So God does not want humans to know the difference between good and evil. Tell me something. If a lion eats an animal, forget animal. If a lion eats a baby, is it an evil lion? No, it's a lion. It's a lion. That's what lions do. It's not a good lion, and it's not a bad lion. It's a lion. Yeah? Let's talk about Harambe. Yeah? It's not bad. It's just what it is. It's the nature. Why? Because it doesn't know the difference. There is no difference from the standpoint of the lion. Well, there's also not a good rock or a bad rock. It's just a rock. What would humans be if they didn't know the difference between good and evil? Harambe. You're telling me that God creates the entire world with like this grand plan, and everything is super important, and it has to be just so, and it's in this order, and then he puts man at the end, and it's very important that the one thing he tells man not to do, it's like unbelievable. He doesn't tell him not to murder. He doesn't. No, just don't eat from the tree. Just whatever you do, please don't mess up the whole universe by learning the difference between good and evil. I'd really like to keep you ignorant. What's the purpose of the world if human beings don't know the difference between good and evil? It's crazy.
But couldn't you have eaten from the tree after Shabbos?
You know what they say, you can't marry a medrash.
Okay, I say that's a magic.
No, I'm not saying it's a medrash, it's a medrash. The question is what it means.
Saying the trees of good and evil?
Yes, Eitz Hada'at Tovara. Ume Eitz Hada'at Tovara. So, okay, that's one problem. Again, to reiterate very, very quickly, if God is telling Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that means on the surface, God does not want man to know the difference between good and evil. And that presents a very large theological quandary. Why would God want humans to be animals? Very strange. Okay, question 1. Question 2. God got very upset when they ate from the tree, yes? And he punishes them? Marvelous. Did they know the difference between good and evil before they ate from the tree or after they ate from the tree? After. See where I'm going with this? If they didn't know the difference between good and evil before they ate from the tree, how can you fault them for eating from the tree? It's like, yeah.
They were told that they couldn't.
Of course, but they don't know the difference between good and evil. So who cares? If you go over to a 2-year-old and you say, don't do that, and they do it, the fact that they disobeyed you is meaningless in their mind because they don't know what consequences are. They have not yet learned that for doing this you get a carrot and doing this you get a stick. So here you have 2 human beings who have no idea what good and evil is, and then they do something evil, and you're very upset at them, and you're like, why did you do that? I mean, Adam's answer really should have been, because I had no idea it was bad. I just thought it looked delicious, so I ate it. I mean, like, that's what I would have said.
God said no. God said no.
Yeah, God said no, but I didn't know it was bad to disobey God. Whoever said it's bad to disobey God? That hasn't been established yet. Until I eat from the tree, I have no idea that there's a difference between listening to God and talking to a waterfall. It's just... Well, right, so many people will say that, right? Well, so God is manipulating them, right? Clearly, God's manipulating them. I'll tell you why I reject that as a possibility. I think that God is, he has the courage to say exactly what he wants. He doesn't have to trick anybody into anything. He can say what he wants to say. So we should respect. I think again, this is me, and I've heard many people say the opposite. I would hope so too, right? So for me, I think that if God says this, we should assume that he means it. So those are the things that I would like to deal with a little bit.
Well, I mean, other language, God Hashem should have used, like besides saying not.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
What other language should he have used?
What other language?
Besides not.
I don't know.
Yeah, think about it. If you say, eat whatever you feel,
Right?
and then you pay the price. Adam said, what do you mean? You create all this, it's available.
Right.
I see a tree, attractive food, so I take it, then what?
I'm not sure that I understand where you're going, but wait till the end, and then we're going to have time for questions at the end. So let's deal with these issues. Let's deal with these issues. Number one. Good and bad. Let's talk about good and bad for a few minutes. How do you feel about slavery?
About what?
Slavery. Would you say that you're a big fan of slavery? Like a big fan? No? A little fan? Not a fan at all? You're not a fan of slavery? Really? Why not? Why isn't slavery good? It's mean. How do better than mean? What's the word that we would use for it, right? Cruel, right? Evil. Slavery is evil, okay? It's not just mean, it's not just cruel. In fact, it doesn't have to be cruel at all. Slavery doesn't have to be cruel. Slavery is wrong even if you are the most benevolent master on the planet Earth. It's still evil as an institution, right? It happens to be that slavery in this country was incredibly cruel, but that's not the point. The point is that the institution is evil. Yes? Okay. Slavery is evil. Fine. How you know? Who says? Who says slavery is evil? Where does it say that?
There's a benefit too for the slave.
Many benefits. We build the railroads cheaply, right? Why is slavery bad? Why is it bad?
You're subjugating a non-human being.
Yes, I am, because it works. It works to my benefit.
Your benefit.
Yes, works to my benefit. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong?
Depends on the society.
Right? I think it's great. How about murder? How do you feel about murder? I love murder. I love murder. You know what? It's fun. A little murder every once in a while, right? The most dangerous game. I think I've been to parties many times. I grew up in Miami, so to really make a cool party, as far as I'm concerned, you're gonna have to have a little murder, right? Because I've been to all the regular clubs. They're not exciting anymore. You want now if you're selling murder at your party, I'm coming. I like murder. I like it. Why is it wrong? You're convinced that murder is wrong. Do you understand? Do you understand? And I mean, this seems to be a little bit weird to people, but you understand that there are hundreds of millions of people now alive today that would consider murdering you to be a wonderful action. Okay, that's not debatable. That is the truth. That is the truth. And people say it, right? I mean, let's just take ISIS. You agree that ISIS says this? You agree that there are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions upon millions, tens of millions, and perhaps hundreds of millions of people who think that murdering you would be a wonderful thing. Yes, thank you, Morty. As Morty says, the season tickets to the Coliseum, baby, sold out. You have a problem with murder. Whoop-de-freaking-da. I think it's great. How do you know you're right? How do you know? Seriously, this is not a rhetorical question. I would like for you to tell me, please.
The question, the one that been murdered is not the end. The family that suffer because of that.
He deserves everything, and there's another guy that says, well,
Now that is interesting. That is very freaky. Apparently my murder speech made some people very, very upset, and now they're talking on the loudspeaker.
guess what happens? Guess usually the server.
Okay. Yes. No, I don't think so. I think that it's the angel of something that's talking to me.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it's cruel for the family that's left behind. Right, you're saying it's the family of the guy. I understand, but I'm a masochist. Causing pain to families makes me very happy. I think the more pain that I cause to families, the better I am. Right? How do you know that you are right and I am wrong? How do you know?
Only if it get attack you, then you know.
Okay, but for right now, I'm stronger and I kill people and I think that's fine. And then I enslave the rest of the population and that's fine. And we rape all the women and burn all the crops unless we take them for ourselves and take all the booty from the treasure house. What's the problem with that?
The end result.
I love the end result. The end result was wonderful. I took over this entire country and now I have all this power and money and it's great. Why is murder wrong? Why is it wrong? Come on, you all think it's wrong. You all think it's wrong. So grab a little bit of courage and please tell me why it's wrong.
Because we have a standard in the Torah.
Oh, so you're gonna get religious on me. I don't believe in your book.
Forget that one.
I don't believe in your book. My book says murder's good.
He's talking about the Quran.
Am I? Okay, but that's irrelevant. But my book says it's good. How do you know that your morals are better than mine? Please explain. How do you know that slavery is bad?
Only when it's close to your life, nothing else.
But
Somebody has died, what's the difference? You don't know him.
no, I'm not telling you what's the difference. I'm telling you it's good to kill him.
No. The question is, how you feel about it?
I think it's wonderful. I'm Hitler, and I killed many, many babies, and it makes me feel good about myself. I feel wonderful. We say this all the time. The difference between Hitler and Mother Teresa was that when Mother Teresa looked in the mirror, she saw a sinner, and when Hitler looked in the mirror, he saw a saint. So please believe me when I tell you that Hitler did not lose a moment's sleep over killing Jewish babies. In fact, it was the highest ideal possible. And the guy that's in jail right now, the terrorist that killed people, that didn't die and is put in jail, you think he's sitting there thinking, oh no, I've caused so much pain? No! He's sitting there in jail thinking, I am a martyr, I'm going to heaven, la la la. And you think that you're right and he's wrong. And I would like you please to explain to me very, very simply, because you feel very strongly about it. It seems obvious to you that he's wrong. Please tell me how it is that you know that he is wrong. Well, because everybody says he's wrong, right? Everybody knows, everyone agrees that slavery is evil, and everybody agrees that murder is bad, and everybody agrees that rape is treacherous, and everybody agrees, well, not everybody, Harvey Weinstein clearly doesn't agree with that, and Hitler doesn't agree with that, and ISIS doesn't agree with that, but that's irrelevant, that's not even the point, because we can say all those people are insane and they don't matter. Fundamentally, it doesn't make any sense. You know why? Tell me something. 1,000 years ago, how did the world feel about slavery? Yeah, they were fine with it, okay? So if you're going to tell me that the reason that slavery is wrong is because everyone has agreed it's wrong, that means that when everyone agrees it's right, it's fine. Which is to say, that slavery is neither inherently right nor inherently wrong. It's whatever people think of it. So really, slavery, good, bad, indifferent. Slavery is neither good nor bad. Just people should do what everyone thinks is okay.
According to the Torah, how you treat the slave, that's another issue.
No, I understand. Again, so you're getting religious on me. I'm talking about a non. Right. Everyone gets religious on me.
The question is to follow what it says, how you should treat the slave.
Yes. So
then you know what's right and wrong.
that's wonderful. So I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand the ideas in a world outside of the Torah, for a very simple reason. If you look at the world like that, then you have a better chance of understanding what the Torah is coming to do. If you use the Torah as a starting point, it's very difficult to understand what it's coming to fix and what it's coming to say. But if you take it out of contention for a moment and you just say, okay, let me put myself into a world pre-Torah and let me understand what the truth of the world is, and then I'll look at what the Torah has to say, it becomes very different.
What happened at the time of Noah?
So,
No, that's the before
but we're gonna after. So,
No.
you can't say that slavery is wrong because everyone says it's wrong. It's not a compelling argument. You can't say murder is wrong because everyone says it's wrong. First of all, because they don't. And second of all, because that means, once again, that if everyone agreed that it was fine, then murder is fine. So you don't think murder is wrong. So rather, you're going to tell me, you're going to say, well, I know it's wrong. I know it's wrong. I feel like it's wrong. Deep in my bones, in my kishkas, in my soul, I feel that murder and slavery and rape and thieving is wrong. Great. Great. And I believe you. I believe that you feel that way. I'm happy for you. But you recognize that I feel exactly the opposite. I think it's great. I feel so good when I murder people. Delicious. You do. Well, of course, I eat them also. Right? So, Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Why kill someone if you're not going to eat them? So, it's not. If you're going to, you may as well be. If you are going to tell me that the reason it's wrong is because you instinctively know it's wrong, then you have to admit that if I instinctively know it's right, that for me it's fine. So once again, the thing itself is neither right nor wrong, it's just you should do however you feel about it. Which is great, because when you look at countries, like countries have no right to look at any other country and say that's bad. That's how those people feel. So America gets up, and you see this all the time. America will get up and say bad things about, you know, Saudi Arabia and their human rights record or lack thereof, or China's human rights record. And then China and Russia and other countries look at America and say, well, you have, you know, class distortion, and you have majorly overpopulated prisons, and you have all these other, right? So everybody always looks at the other guys and says what they don't like about the other society. So when we look at them, we're like, oh, the evil socialists, and they look at us, the evil capitalists, right? Everyone's full of it. So the truth is, this isn't really my argument. As much as I would like it to be, it's not. It's a 3,000-year-old Greek argument. Not 3,000, but 2,000. Moral subjectivism. There are two possibilities. Morality is either subjective or objective. There is no third possibility. If morality exists, either it exists on its own, or you create it. Now, let's explain what the difference of that would be. If morality is objective, then it's like gravity or rain. The way you feel about gravity is irrelevant. Gravity will treat you the same whether you love it, hate it, believe in it, or don't. Before Newton discovered gravity, people still fell down. He didn't invent gravity, he discovered it. Until him, people fell and they didn't know why. Okay? So regardless of how you feel about the concept of gravity, you're still going to fall at exactly the same rate. You recognize this is true. Something which is objectively the case doesn't care how you feel about it. Santa Claus doesn't exist no matter how much you want him to. You can believe in fairies all day and clap your hands as loud as you like. Hi, Russ. As loud as you like. You're not going to create Tinkerbell. That's if it's objective. If morality is subjective, then that means there are no intrinsic moralities. Rather, morality is what we make of it. So if we decide murder is wrong, it's wrong today. And if we decide murder is right, it's right today. And the same goes with slavery and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, pick your issue. They're all the same. It's either objective or subjective. So you can put this another way. If morality is subjective, there is no morality.
It's morality.
What's morality? Things that are right and wrong to do. Things that are right and wrong to do. If morality is subjective, it means that it's a human construct, like gender. Yeah, it's something that doesn't actually exist, but we pretend it does, and we work within it, abiding by certain rules. But inherently, there's no morality. If morality is objective, then it stands alone and exists, even if there are no humans. There could be no humans, but morality would be the same, much like gravity. It just is. Now, if morality just is, if morality is objective, you are obviously going to be hard-pressed to prove how you know that A, that is the case, and B, what makes you think that your objective book is the right one. Okay, it has a whole slew of challenges. Fine. Now let's think for a moment. Good and bad. Good and evil. I would say that there is nothing on the planet Earth that causes more pain, strife, and horrific problems than morality, than your ideas of good and evil. See, because really, there's just no good and evil. Good and evil is in your mind. You know what exists? Truth and falsity. True and false. That's what exists.
Who says what's true and what's false?
We'll get to that, my friend. That's all that exists. The world is real. It's real. The problem is, yes, and we're going to see how that evolved. Humans believe in good and evil. Humans, very weak-minded, meat-brain humans. And the problem with good and evil is it's very confusing. It's very confusing. You know why? Because every good thing that you do has a little bit of evil too. And every evil thing that you do has a little bit good. And you don't know how to balance it. Because what outweighs what? For example, let's say there's a madman with a horrible haircut and no fashion sense in Asia, who you know wants to destroy the world, theoretically. And you can kill him. But in order to kill him, you have to shoot a missile that will also kill 5 million other people. What do? Well, you could say, well, it's good to kill him because then you'll save, the world. On the other hand, it's bad, it's evil because you're killing 5 million people. It doesn't have to be 5 million. Do you drop the bomb on the terrorist compound? If you know that bin Laden is in the house, but he's there with 5 kids, do you kill him or not? What do you do? This is a good and evil problem, isn't it? It's good to kill him, but it's evil to kill the kids. It gets much more subtle than that. You get into healthcare issues and immigration issues and abortion issues. And suddenly you start noticing that all of the national conversations are good and evil conversations. You have people talking past each other because the people here say, don't you understand, we have to stop immigration. It's good to stop immigration because it keeps the nation safe. Yes, but it's evil to halt immigration because what about all those tens of thousands of people, right? What about all those tens of thousands of people who aren't bad? You're messing them over. What outweighs what? You talk about healthcare. It's good to give healthcare to everybody. Who could possibly think it's anything other than wonderfully good to give healthcare to everybody? But someone's paying for it, and you're taking it out of his pocket, and that's evil. So both sides of every debate in this country are really a question of weighting. waiting with an E-I-G-H-T. It's a question of wait, not waiting to tarry with patience, but rather it's a question of what outweighs the other on the good and evil chart. That's the issue. And we destroy the narrative by making it obvious that this is the truth. So you have like these little, echo chambers, which we've discussed many times. Everyone here thinks this definitively, and everyone here thinks this definitively, and nobody thinks that anybody across the aisle has any point to make. It's a good and evil problem. It's a good and evil problem. See, but truth has nothing to do with good and evil. Truth just is. Truth just is.
Who knows what the truth is? Everybody does something.
Bubble, we're gonna get there. So, I'm coming to you, baby. I'm coming to you. So, truth, whether or not you're aware of it.
You can't compare politics as good or bad because it's all a hoax anyway. It's not evil. It's a sham. It's not.
Okay. So, truth does not care about good or evil. For example, is it good that babies die in car accidents? Well, it may not be good, but it's true. It happens. It happens. Good and evil has nothing to do with truth. Let's think for a moment. God tells humans, don't eat from that tree. Because on the day that you eat from that tree, you're going to know good and evil. You're going to take good and evil and you're going to put it inside of you.
Well, aren't you also going to bring it to the world?
You are the world. Humans are the world.
Bring it to the, I'm saying once they ate from the tree, they brought good and evil into the world.
They brought good and evil into themselves. The tree was there. It's Ein Sadat Tov Ra, whether or not they eat from it. But when they eat from it, they brought it into themselves. God did not want them want. God says, this is not a good idea. Don't eat from that tree. Well, we said, but I don't understand. They didn't know good and evil until they ate from it. How could God fault them from it? You have a major mistake here.
Why is the tree there? Why did God even put the tree there?
That's all the way at the end. We'll get there too. We'll get there too. God is saying, you may not know good and evil, but you know truth. Of course Adam and Eve knew truth. They weren't morons. They knew truth. They knew that God says, don't eat. And they ate. Now that they ate, they have their own feelings about what is good and what is bad. You see this in the verse, because it says in the pasuk, Hen ha'adam haya ke'echad mimenu ladat tov vara. This verse, this sentence, is taken in different ways depending upon which rabbi you follow. Some of the Rishonim say it means, oh no, the man has become like one of us the angels. Ke'echad mimenu, like one of us knowing good and evil. That's not how Rambam learns it. Rambam learns, Hen ha'adam haya ke'echad. Man is now like the one. Who's the one? God. Mimenu ladat tov vara. From himself he knows good and evil. Meaning, it's a problem. Now that man decides from inside of him what is good and evil, we have enormous problems. Because people think they know what good is and what bad is based upon how their kishkas feel. So if you grow up in this society, you're very certain that stabbing 80-year-old Jews on Ben Yehuda Street is a good thing. And if you're in this society, then stabbing, and everyone thinks killing Jews is good, but in this society, slavery is great, and in this society, slavery is evil. In this society, rape is fine. It's a Tuesday. No one cared about rape in Rome. In this society, rape is so horrible, we'll take away your business for it. In this, you understand? It's whatever you want it to be. It's a massive problem. So now let's go back to our original two questions, our philosophical questions. So I'm going to take what you said and what you said, and I'm going to put it together. We said, how could God get angry at them for doing something that they had no idea was wrong? Of course they knew. Of course they knew. They didn't know good and evil. They knew truth and false. Of course they knew. Clear. Clear as day. They had no doubt as to what was the truth about things. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking that means you have no free will. Of course you have free will. You can sin very well without being confused. You can know definitively that what you're about to do is a sin and still sin. Tell me something. When the guy is in the hotel, right, on the business trip at 11:30 at night, and there's a girl at the bar, and he pulls off his wedding ring, puts it in his pocket, and sits down next to him. You're telling me he's not sure whether or not what he's about to do is good or bad? Of course he knows, right? I mean, the fact that you know something concretely is false does not mean that you don't have the ability to do it. It just means you're not confused about it. The tragedy of the tree is not that we now sin. You would have had sin before anyway. The problem with the tree, the tragedy of the tree, is uncertainty. The tragedy of the tree is doubt. The tragedy of the tree is subjective morality. Mimenu ladat tov vara. From him he knows good and evil. If you feel good and evil, you'll go to war over nothing, and you'll slaughter innocents in the name of beauty. History. I give you history. Now, sure. Look at America. You don't have to go back to Rome.
Rome.
Now, if this is the case, we asked the first question before we even started with the story. We said, why is the story there? Like, you don't need this. This isn't about how God created the world. Who needs it? Well, 1 second. This is a story of the human condition. The Torah is telling you the universal nature of man. And it's recognizing that the nature of man is not the ultimate truth and reality. The Torah is telling you from the get-go, the first story of humans. When you talk first story of humans, proto-humanity, what you're saying is, this is the human condition. When? Forever! This is the human condition. And in the same story, it's telling you two things. Number one, it's not supposed to be this way. The way you feel about things is not the way things are. And B, because you do what you want to do as opposed to what the truth is to do, you do evil. Because of that, you do evil. Did God want them to eat from the tree? Who says there's a magic tree? Who says there's a magic? You don't have to get into magic trees. You don't have to get into magic trees. Yeah, okay, there is a tree. There wasn't a tree. It's literally true. It's figuratively true. It's metaphorically true. That doesn't matter. What's the message? What's it saying? What's it saying? Why is it there? It's telling you that the human condition is that they took from outside and brought into themselves the ability to discern between good and bad. And since then, the first question God asked him is, Ayeka, where are you? He doesn't know anymore. He doesn't know. Why doesn't he know? Because he's confused. He's totally confused. And who among us is not? By the way, you know who's really dangerous? The ones who aren't confused. The ones who are certain, the ones who are so sure about good and evil, those are the terrorists. They're so certain about what's good and what's evil that they're willing to murder babies. People who don't know, people who aren't certain, don't push the button to drop the bomb because they say, but the babies. And they may be just as wrong. Understand? Right?
If someone can't hold something in his head, the reason why he ate from he wanted to eat from the thing so badly,
Yeah.
it was in his head all the time.
That's very possible.
Do it and get over it. Because some things in your head is also.
I mean, I don't see in the verse where it says either of those two things, that he wanted to or that God said get it over with. Kabbalah Shesfarim are way beyond me. I'm a third grader. Libby, I'm a third grader. I only read the words. More than the words I can't do. Third grader.
It's better than you going around and you have a week time, you want to steal something.
Mm-hmm.
What's better? To go around for a month time in your head and you want to steal something, the better to steal it, get over with it, and go on.
Hey, but you're still gonna sin.
I don't know why that's obvious to you. I think
Why?
that
It's
you
a
can
sin.
very well argue that you should sin in your mind rather than with your hands. But we could debate that. We could debate the system Okay, but the point here is, what is the Torah telling us with this story? So I think one thing that the Torah is telling us with this story, very, very simply, is the fact that you are absolutely twisted in terms of what you think is good and what you think is bad. You are caught up in subjective morality inside of you. You have brought it inside. And because you have brought it inside, you've destroyed the world.
That's when you get
No.
to hurricane, right?
Oh, that's what, yeah. Well, again, you would have had Yetzer Hara anyway, but it means it's inside of you. You can't tell the difference anymore. They're wrapped up within each other, and every decision that you make will have elements of good and elements of bad, and you'll sit there thinking to yourself, what's the right thing to do? Whereas in reality, you should never consider good and bad. You should do the true thing every time. And sometimes the truth is bad. That doesn't matter. It's the truth. It's what you should do. You don't see the truth. So as my friend here asked, how do you find the truth? Oh, remember we said in the beginning, first try to understand what the world is without the Torah. And then figure out why you got the Torah. Right? That's what the Torah is there to do.
There's no world without the Torah.
I understand. I'm saying how we should come to it. Right? So the purpose of the Torah is objective truth and objective morality. Now, this doesn't in any way deal with, well, maybe that's wrong, right? Maybe the Quran is objectively true. Maybe the New Testament's objectively true. Maybe Hiawatha's book's objectively true. Maybe Mormon's, right? Fine. That's a wonderful discussion which we should have. We should have those discussions. But the purpose of this idea was to understand why it shows up in the Bible at all, what is the message, and by the way, this will also probably give you an indication as to why the other stories don't have anything like this. The other origin stories never talk about the first man. What's first man? We only want to know, how did the world come to be? Well, it was a turtle, it was a monster, it was a dragon. Who's going to talk about first man? I'm the man. That's not what the Torah's there to do. The Torah's telling you human condition. Universal human reality. This is what you are. Deal with it, understand it, embrace it, fix it. Fix it, get over yourself. Don't do what you think is good. Do what's true. Do what the Torah says. That's the point. You gotta get over yourself and you gotta get out of yourself. That's the idea. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, that's every thought. I know it's annoying. I know the idea of subjective morality is annoying because until each and every one of us understands, and I mean feels, okay, until you've embraced the fact that murder and slavery and rape and robbing is not bad, until you embrace that, you're nowhere. You're a horrible person. If you think that slavery is bad because you feel it's terrible, and you think that rape is bad because you feel it's terrible, and you think that murder is bad because you feel it's terrible, you're Hitler. You're a horrible person. It has nothing to do with the fact that I agree or disagree with your moral. What you're saying is, it's bad because I feel it. Because I feel it. That's why it's bad. Great. And when you think it's good to murder, you're going to be first in line. First in line. Because it's all about you and what you feel. You need to stop caring about what you feel. And instead, start concentrating on what you know. You gotta know it. Stop feeling it. Woosa. Anyway, it's great to be back with the Lighthouse. I think next week,
So the point, so murder's bad only because the truth is the Torah says murder is bad.
Either objectively you know that it's bad, or it's not bad at all.
Well, but
Correct.
the only way to know it's bad is true because of the Torah.
Well, yes, but the reason that I don't want to go that far right now is because we haven't established the Torah is true, so why should anybody believe me? But the point is, the fact that you feel that it's bad doesn't make it bad, and the fact that everyone agrees that it's bad doesn't make it bad.
Right.
That's the issue. So that means that the first story that you ever hear about involving a human being is the fact that
about
human
murder.
beings like to decide what's good and what's bad, and that's not good.
You're saying that we should never trust our feelings, ever?
I'm saying that human beings are inherently broken because, well, that's not true, they're not broken. Human beings are inherently confused and skewed. They're skewed. You think a certain way, that doesn't make it so. It's just not true. You can't trust what you feel to determine. Now, if you don't know, so we say, okay, you have to do your best. Well, how do you do your best? How do you right? It's not socially acceptable. Thank you, Rotem. Right? It's 100%. So you're a heartless bastard. Thank you, Esther. I am a heartless bastard. That's true. But anyway, okay, I'm getting all the love. The idea is, I don't think, by the way, Esther, I don't think little of myself at all. In fact, I think that humans have the ability to transcend and to be tremendously great. But when they start thinking that what their opinions are and what their feelings are matter, that's when they become despots. There's no difference between what you think is moral and what you like to eat. Thinking that murder is bad is the same thing as enjoying Rocky Road ice cream. That's my point. So with that, peace and love and Shabbat Shalom.